Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back in Disney's Freakier Friday.
Yes, totally.
OMG, yes.
On August 8th.
We switched bodies.
I didn't want to be a part of this family, and now I'm part of some dodgy family curse, and I'm the eldest.
The ultimate movie event of the summer arrives.
I think I just peed a little.
Disney's Freakier Friday, in theaters August 8th. Get tickets now.
Oh, this is cool.
Let's do it.
Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't identify as either, you are listening to Ratchet and Respectable. I'm in the British Virgin Islands now. I think last time we spoke, actually, I know last time we spoke, it was on my birthday. I was in St. Thomas for a few days, and I popped over to visit St. John, which I'd never been to before, and I was like, ooh, I like it over here. Really good restaurants. I got back to St. Thomas, and I just wasn't ready to leave yet. So I was like, I think I want to stay longer, but I want to do something else. So I wasn't really quite sure what. So I checked out my hotel and I packed up all my stuff and I got a taxi to take me to the marine terminal. And I was like, what's the next boat? And the lady was like, Road Town at 140. And I was like, Road Town, that's just like Tortola. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take a ticket. She was like, do you have a passport? And I was like, I do. So it all worked out. I got on a boat. And as we were pulling in, I went on hotels.com and booked a place and then, gave it to the agent. They were very pushy about where are you staying? What's the address? How many nights? And I was like, oh, okay, very aggressive. Maybe there's a lot of Americans trying to sneak into the country right now, given our issues at home. I don't know. Got my little taxi and came over to the hotel. It's beautiful. Oh my God, it's lovely. When I leave, I'll tell you where I am. Maybe I might plan a big birthday party here next year. I didn't do a birthday group trip this year because I did one last year. I didn't want to be like a birthday hog. I mentioned to a couple of people I was going to St. Thomas, and they were like, oh, let me look at my dates. And I was like, that wasn't an invite. I kind of just wanted to be solo so I could, move as I see fit. First 3 days I was here, I laid by the hotel pool all day. Like I would leave to go get something to eat at night, but otherwise, like I was good. And then like randomly I woke up and started venturing out to things like very last minute. I just didn't feel like planning. I just wanted to be like on the beach or in the sun and seeing water. Either way, now I'm right by the beach. I got beautiful beach views and beautiful sunsets. Oh my gosh. None of this is the point. The point is we have a very exciting episode. We got to talk about some TV-ish because there's wildness occurring on my favorite TV show, Sex and the City, which I'm hate watching because I don't know what they're doing with these characters. But we'll talk about that. And then also the Gilded Age. Gladys. If you have not watched the most recent episode of The Gilded Age, and if you've not been watching, I said Sex and the City. I meant, and just like that, Sex and the City, same difference. If you have not been watching, I'm about to give major spoilers, so you may just want to fast forward to the end of the episode. We got to talk about Essence again. We got to talk about it because last week's episode, I did an interview with the chief events officer. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, you absolutely should. There's lots of conversation online about what happened at this year's Essence Festival, conversation and criticism. I think some of the criticism is very, very warranted. I think some of the conversation is very, very warranted. I think some of it is, I thought it was batshit crazy at first, but thinking about it more, I think it's misdirected. I think it's inaccurate, speaking specifically about Essence being like overrun by quote unquote Africans or other cultures. I think it's an inaccurate assessment, but I don't think it's an unwarranted belief. Does that make sense? And still, I was going to let that conversation go because we interviewed the chief events officer last week, Michael Barclay, which the number of people who wrote in to be like, oh my God, I felt like y'all had chemistry. He was totally flirting with you. That man was not flirting with me. One, I did the interview and then I also had to go back and edit the interview. And then I listened a full solid time after I edit like a second time to just tweak the episode. I listen to every episode minimum 3 times before it comes out. The man was not flirting with me. But even my friends, one of my friends, like, you just sound really soft in the interview. You were softer than usual. I was like, really? I didn't hear it. I was asking a series of questions, many of which were, well, how did you get this wrong? And why did you get this wrong? And why did you get this wrong? And why did you get this wrong? And just coming out the gate being aggressive or just asking people over and over and over to explain themselves. Think about how you feel if you've ever been in an argument with somebody who does that to you. You just want to tell them to shut the fuck up and punch them in the face. I wanted answers. going in with a heavy-handed approach wouldn't have worked for the interview. It wouldn't have got us the answers that we got because I thought he was very transparent while still, saying what he needed to say to keep his job. I'm very aware that, he does work for a company. He can't get on here and be like, yeah, we fucked everything up, which I also don't think is accurate. The criticism doesn't even support that. So whatever. The owner of Essence, Rich Dennis, went on the Breakfast Club. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so he must have gone on Monday, but went on the Breakfast Club to talk about, what happened at this year's Essence Festival. Like I said in last Wednesday's episode, Essence is very aware of the criticism, which how could they not be, because folks are loud. So he went on the Breakfast Club to address the issues. So I want to talk about that interview and some of the things that he said. Some of it is overlap from what Michael Barclay said, again, the chief events officer. And I was like, did y'all have a PR meeting like early on? Festival ended last Sunday. I talked to Michael on Wednesday morning. And then a week later, Rich says about the same thing. I was like, either y'all got your talking points early or y'all just telling the facts and the truth. Could be a combination of the two. I don't know. But I do want to talk about some of the things Rich said. He didn't say everything that Michael said. I also don't think he did himself any favors with that interview. But we'll talk about that when we get to that portion. First, I want to talk about a little bit, just a tiny bit of good Black news, because I feel like we haven't covered any in a while. Glynn Turman, one of our faves, Colonel Taylor, the man done did 50 million other things with his life, including Cooley High, which is before I was born. But Colonel Taylor, Glynn Turman, got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. He's a veteran actor and still working. He showed up with, maybe he was with more people, like his family and such, but he was there with Don Cheadle and Ava DuVernay. I think of him in the very first episode of Queen Sugar. He was the dad that threw everything into a tailspin. He was literally in that show for one episode and put on like a whole acting clinic. I think all the man did was die. I still remember Charlie breaking down at the hospital. Woo! That's a good show. Some good acting. Some good writing. It's beautifully shot too. Well directed. Queen Sugar was a masterpiece. Glynn Turman also did a really good job. I want to call him Colonel Taylor so bad. In Paradise, that was just on Hulu with Sterling K. Brown. He played the daddy. He was Sterling K. Brown's daddy on the show. He didn't have a lot of screen time on that show. They were sitting at a table in the airport, and Sterling K. Brown was telling him that his wife was pregnant, Glynn Turman, was going to be a father. And it took a minute for him to register. And then just like the range of expression on his face when it did register, very small expressions, but just a beautiful bit of acting. He's such a great talent. I'm glad that he's being celebrated. He deserves it, over-deserves it. What else do I have on my list? There's not a lot, unfortunately. Doechii was on the cover of British Vogue. My former makeup artist. I can't afford him now. I could afford him at the time. He lived up the street, Jamal Scott. But now he's doing Grammy Award-winning faces for the covers of Vogue. Shit done changed. Congratulations, both to Doechii and to Jamal Scott. Really great photos. It's kind of giving Grace Jones, 80s, 90s, a lot of neon, but also like some disco situation. Just basically, I just described Grace Jones. It's giving Doechii as Grace Jones with like some Doechii oomph on it, because her fashion and hair people and face people are incredible. So congratulations to that whole team. They got that girl working, as she should be. I hate it when people get like big awards or have big moments and then like nothing comes after it. Doechii's team seemed to be very much like, okay, if we get this Grammy, we on go. Let's go. I love it. I love a good rollout. Speaking of a good rollout, Clipse, their new album. What is the name of the album? I've been listening to it nonstop since it dropped. I said something about the Clipse album. I said a few things about it on social media. They were like, you listen to Clipse? For the love of God. The podcast is called Ratchet and Respectable. I know most of the stuff we talk about ain't full-on ratchet, which I also don't think the Clipse are full-on ratchet. I mean, yes, it's like, cocaine music. But I also like talk about Rick Ross all the time. Like, clearly I like coke music. Somebody describe, not the whole album, but Malice. Somebody was like, he's a Christian coke rapper. They were like, how you gonna praise God and sell drugs? And I was like, I swear every rapper does. You gotta have some higher belief system to sell drugs. You do. To think you're not gonna get caught or not gonna get killed or end up in jail for the rest of your life. There's a lot of faith involved there. I hope that's not blasphemous. God, don't smite me. Let God sort them out. God is in the title of the album, but it's a total cocaine album. In addition to other things, literally the album starts with them talking about how their parents died 4 months apart. The mom knew she was going. She was preparing herself to die. She had tied up a bunch of loose ends. And then also like Malice. I think he found both his parents, but he describes like, going to his dad's house, seeing a car in the driveway. So he knew he was home, but then knocking on the door 3 times and then realizing something was wrong. Like I'm in the ocean with no food in my system, drunk off rum punch, crying over the passing of their father. Ugh. They brought it home. They told a story. They delivered it well. The emotion was there. It's a testament to good hip hop. And it's a great album. They talked they shit on this album. It said your chain got too much enamel. Oh, I miss good writers. The other thing too, this is such a minor thing. Usually when I'm in the car with my mom, even if it's something like ratchet and they curse a lot, I can play it because my mom can't understand it. Like her ear literally just doesn't pick up. Most rappers just speak too fast and more importantly, don't enunciate. So I was listening to the Clipse album and I was like, oh, there's no way I can play this in the car with my parents. They pronounce the hard T and everything like they are using the King's English in the way that it was intended. Like we're essentially just listening to poetry. I mean, I guess you could make that argument for all hip hop, but like actual good poetry with like proper simile and metaphor and structure. Like it's the English major in me is thrilled. You know how I feel about good writing and chocolate men. Malice, this is nothing against Pusha T. We just see him all the time. The braids also don't do it for me. Malice, that is the face of a living god. Perfect bone structure, perfect complexion. Just everything about his face is perfection. He also looks like my high school boyfriend. The preacher's son probably ruined me for life. That's a whole nother story. What else do I have on this list? I have Alligator Alcatraz. Why do I have this listed? Oh, because, the U.S. is crazy and is creating concentration camps in the swamps of Florida. Okay. Not okay, but acknowledging this as truth. I kept seeing people online refer to it as Alligator Alcatraz, and I just figured, like, it had a more proper name. DC, we refer to the airport as DCA or National. Technically, it's like Ronald Reagan National, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I just figured like there was a proper name for this prison and they just were calling it Alligator Alcatraz until I was scrolling online and saw that they were putting up a sign on the side of the road, basically like, as a direction, like turn here for Alligator Alcatraz. And I was like, y'all literally named the prison Alligator Alcatraz? They did. The reason I wrote it down, I was scrolling through my photos on my phone the other day looking for something else, and I came across photos from my visit to the Blacksonian, National Museum, African American History and Culture. Remember I talked about here a while ago, and I was like, everybody get there with haste because they're going to start taking stuff out of the museum. There's some question as to whether or not they have or have not done that. Reports are conflicting, but leave it at that. I came across this image, a cartoon of an alligator attempting to eat a black baby. It was an ad for licorice, I think, some kind of candy. Please Google this because what I'm about to say sounds completely insane. And you'll be like, Demetria, what? Yes. So apparently there was a chapter in our history in which, I don't know how prevalent it was, white people would use literally black babies as bait to get alligators to come out of the water. So like, how you put like a worm on a hook and you put it in the water to get the fish to bite? Same concept, but use black babies. I don't know how prominent this was, but it was something that was done at least often enough or talked about enough or something that penetrated the zeitgeist enough that there are depictions, multiple, on postcards of little black babies sitting somewhere and then an alligator like creeping out of the water to get the baby. Gator bait, alligator bait. Very rarely do racists, especially in this country, I can't speak for everywhere else, do anything that's particularly creative. They are very consistent. They very often recycle ideas. Black babies as alligator bait somewhere in like the 1850s, fast forward to 2025, and essentially using brown people, immigrants or Americans, because they just locking everybody up at this point, as alligator bait, Alligator Alcatraz. Who was it that said something about 64 million people, 64 million meals? Googling it right now. 64 million alligator. Laura Loomer. Oh, that's like the crazy racist who I think is Trump's mistress. Okay. Hold on. I want to get this quote right. She tweeted, "Alligator lives matter. The good news is alligators are guaranteed at least 65 million meals if we get started now. The population of Latinos in America is somewhere around 65 million." That's where she got that number from. So she's joking about feeding brown people to alligators. And I was like, oh, look at history repeating itself. Not creative, but consistent. Okay, we need to talk about Sex and the City. Again, I'm about to drop major spoilers, so if you haven't been keeping up with Sex and the City and you haven't been watching Gilded Age Season 3, I'm going to spoil everything. So you can fast forward ahead to the conversation on Essence, or we can bid each other adieu now, and I could talk to you next week. Go. Like now. Go now, because I'm going to start spoiling now. Push, pause, stop, now. Okay, I'm starting. Now. Sex and the City, and just like that, I wanted to like this show. Season 1, okay. Season 2, okay. I primarily like Lisa Todd Wexley, aka Nicole Ari Parker. I'm really in it for the black chick. The more they can film in her apartment, the better. The art in there is amazing. I love it. What they've done to the character of Carrie and then also Miranda is like borderline criminal. I hate what they've done to these characters. Carrie, I guess in some ways she's consistent of who her character has always been. It drives me nuts that she seems to have had no growth between how she was when we met her in her 30s and now meeting her again in her 50s, I think pushing 60. Her choices that she makes with men, her utter selfishness. The last 2 episodes of this show, maybe it's the last 3 episodes, she went to Aiden's house in the country. The guy who asked her to, like, he had family issues. So he was like, I need to, like, take a break and focus on my family. And she was like, sure, no problem. Like, how much time do you need? Like a month, 90 days? And he was like, I mean, like 5 years. Nigga, what? And she said okay to that shit. I was like, look, like, not to kill you off anytime soon. Like, I hope you have a long and prosperous life. But you are a woman of a certain age. You only got so many summers left. You have more summers behind you than you do ahead of you. And you're going to waste 5 years of them waiting on this dude? He's not that great. I liked him when he was around the first time. She didn't like him. Hence why she broke out in hives when she put on the wedding dress. And I was like, and this is who you want to try again with. You know what? People circle the block all the time. It works sometimes. Not really sure for who, but surely at some time in human history, this has worked. She goes down to his house. His family is a mess. Clearly, their son has some major issues, and they're in denial about how bad off he is. So this is not a situation that gets cleared up anytime soon, and I don't think it's a situation that gets cleared up with time. But I'm like, you with no children are taking on a guy with 3 children. He tells you initially, we're going to take these 5 years. Don't call me and don't see me. And I'm really not going to show that much effort to you. I'll pop in and out at my leisure. When she goes down there, he won't even let her stay in the house. And I was like, girl, why are you there? Like, she packed up and left. And I thought, like, okay, like she's had to come to Jesus. Like, I want no parts of this. The follow-up episode after that, her conflict for the whole episode, she's walking around the apartment in her heels, which is rude as fuck when you know somebody lives downstairs. She's lived in New York all her adult life. You know how rude that shit is. Even if she didn't, her neighbor comes up and was like, hey, like you in the heels, can you like, not because, or get rugs or something because you're just trotting all over your house all day and I'm downstairs. And she was like, oh my God, he asked me not to wear my heels. Girl, are you serious right now? It's so unbelievably obnoxious and selfish. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, lady? But also to the writers, this is her major conflict for this episode, wearing heels. The episode after that, Aiden comes up for a visit. He got a lot on his mind because he has to tell Carrie that he slept with his ex-wife. Carrie has this non-reaction and she was like, well, okay, like, I can see how that happens. And Aiden's like, wait, you're not even mad? He's like, we're supposed to be in this committed thing. And like, now I've slept with somebody else. And so she was like, wait, were we supposed to be committed? He thought y'all were supposed to be committed. and then he slept with his ex. So in his head, whether you thought it or not, he cheated on you. He knew what the boundaries were, and then he crossed them. And then he comes to tell you that he crossed them. And her whole reaction is, well, I didn't know you expected me to just be with you over the next 5 years while we're living in separate places and you're sorting out your whole family thing and you've kind of backburnered me. But like, okay, cool. I guess if that's the way you want it. But like, yeah, like, okay, you slept with your ex. So like, let's have sex. Literally, it goes from one scene from him being like, yeah, I cheated on you and I slept with my ex-wife. And then literally the next scene, they're in bed having sex. I was just like, where is your basic self-respect? Where is your common sense? But that's where we are. That's where we are. And then this current episode, they throw a party for Charlotte. Carrie gets mad at Miranda because Miranda notices she has some intimacy with her downstairs neighbor. She just kind of points it out to Carrie very casually, like, and you know how Miranda can be like very nitpicky and very confrontational? Wasn't even being that. And then Carrie just like flips on her and she was like, I am in a relationship. I am in a relationship. I was like, girl, you are in some bullshit. You think you deserve to be treated bad by Aiden because you cheated on him all those years ago? So you think you deserve the terrible way he treats you and you don't deserve better from him, but you want him because he's familiar? I don't know what psychology is going on in her head. But she flips on Miranda and I was like, ma'am, please take thee to a therapist with haste because I can't watch more episodes of this shit. At some point, you just got to grow the fuck up. Aiden hates her. People are like, no, he's just complicated. No, she cheated on him all those years ago and he's making her pay for it in the weight of gold right now. He might love her, but he also hates her. And he acts like it. And she seems not to get it. And I'm just like, yo, they done turned this iconic character into a goddamn cat lady with no self-esteem, no self-awareness, who treats her friends like shit. Which some people would argue, I mean, that's who Carrie's always been. Which, again, no growth, no growth, no growth. Miranda used to have good sense. Last episode, Miranda had met this woman who has a couple dogs. The lady seems okay. She's all right. But Miranda had been dating a lady for about like a month. She's trying to figure out her living situation. So Seema was showing her some apartments to buy. And Miranda found the perfect place, but it's in a building that doesn't allow pets. So Miranda was like, no, I can't buy this because like my girlfriend has pets. The lady they not in a relationship. They've been dating all of a month. She living in an Airbnb. You're not going to buy an underpriced New York apartment in a good neighborhood because the lady that you're dating, not in a relationship with, not engaged to, not married to, has pets. Man, I could see if she had a pet. People treat their pets like family. If that's how you feel about your dog or your cat, I get it. It's not your dogs. It's not your girlfriend. It's not your fiance. It's not your wife. You met this lady a month ago and you making decisions about where to move. Like, I don't remember Miranda being like this when she dated men. Ever since she's been dating women, she's just made horrible fucking choices. Ma'am, what are you doing? What are you doing? Miranda used to be the one that like overthought everything and like made a bunch of sense. Your character did change in the worst of ways. Charlotte, they were giving bullshit storylines to, which now that she's got something very heavy, I'm okay with. Charlotte has a good storyline. What's going on with her and Harry and his health issues, that's a strong storyline. Seema has lost her job. Apparently she's now broke. And I'm trying to figure out, like, you sold luxury real estate, like for millions and millions and millions. Like you sold Carrie's big ass penthouse. That's the kind of real estate you do. You did luxury real estate in Manhattan for the better part of, I don't know, I'd say 30 years. How do you not have any money? But then also, what did you spend it on? So like if you made a bunch of money, but then you spent a bunch of money on dumb shit, then tell me, because that'll help me understand why you're broke. But like you did luxury real estate in Manhattan and now you have no funds? I understand giving up luxuries like, okay, like the driver. You don't have a job right now. You don't want to just like run up the tab on dumb shit. But you don't have money to the point that you're taking the path from New York into Jersey. And I hated that they kept calling it Newark the whole episode when they went to the funeral. And I was like, no. Like the black girl should have called it Newark. The white people wanted to call it Newark. And then she could step in and be like, actually, it's Newark. It would have been a great little detail, I think. Jennifer Lewis saved that episode, by the way. Nicole Ari Parker has a decent storyline. Her father passing away for the second time. HBO tried to clean it up and was like, oh no, in the first season, when she said her father passed away, she meant her stepfather, not as in Billy D. Williams, like her father. And I was like, wait, what? These things happen. They do. Writers make mistakes. People make mistakes. Nobody intends to, like, fuck up at that level. But it's also like, yo, like, what is going on in your writer's room? Did you kill the black girl's daddy off twice? My favorite show is fucking up right now. The fashion is good. The heels and accessories are good. The lifestyle is good. I'm just like, can you get my characters together, people, please? I want to love the show. I'm not loving the show. I'm loving the aesthetics, but I'm not loving the show. Ugh. The Gilded Age, everybody's pissing me off. I shouldn't say everybody. Bertha Russell and her husband are pissing me off with this Gladys storyline. The social climbing couple, both of them. Mr. Russell is in on it too because he cut the check. They've married off their daughter to a duke because they want his title. Essentially, the mother wants the daughter to have the title, but more importantly, she wants to be the mother of a duchess. She wants the social clout from it. But they married off their daughter to a man that she hardly knows and does not want to be married to. She wanted to be married to somebody else. That was a bad decision anyway. But I was like, she's only like 17, 18 years old in the show. She has more options. She's got at least another 3-4 years to find a husband. She's an heiress. I'm like, y'all just married her off to the first duke y'all met. Maybe you could meet another duke. She's a cute girl. Once they got her hair together, because season 1, it was a little... Gladys always had a cute face. She had a nice disposition. Very sheltered, very naive. But it's like you just sent your very sheltered, very naive daughter. You done married her off to somebody and sent her across an ocean with some people y'all don't even know. Y'all don't know if that man is abusive. Y'all don't know if that man's going to beat on her. And it's like 1880 something. It's not like she could pick up the phone and call home. She could send a letter. At best, you could send Gladys overseas and literally never see that girl again. And her mama was just like, but he's a duke, but he's a duke. And she kept trying to convince Gladys and her husband, like, oh, but she'll have influence in her clothes and her hair and her jewelry and her causes, and it'll give her power. It'll give her a voice. Like, it's the best thing for Gladys. No, you just did that shit to impress a bunch of women that you really don't even like, and they don't even like you. And you just like sold Gladys. You just sold your teenage daughter, lady. And not even sold her for money, because y'all the ones with the money. You done gave up a chunk of your fortune and your daughter to be the queen bee of a bunch of bitches that don't like you. That wedding was the saddest thing. Gladys trying not to break down, going down the aisle. God bless whoever had the idea to like put the veil over the camera and make it blurry so you could get Gladys's perspective and you could see people reacting to her crying and how miserable she looked walking down the aisle. Your whole social circle knows that you sold your daughter and she didn't want to marry that man. Nobody's going to think highly of you. Oh, and Mr. Russell's running out of money. JP Morgan came to tell him on the day of his daughter's wedding, like, hey, I'm pulling out a back of you because all these banks are closing. We got too much money in this. It's about to go belly up. I'm not losing my money. Bye. Dude had told you your money was running short before. You thought the wedding was over. So you were like, the money we put aside for Gladys's wedding, put that on the business. But now Gladys is getting married. Sir, your money about to come up short. Y'all gonna end up with the title with everybody hating y'all and be broke. And your daughter gonna hate you. Oh, poor Gladys, man. Poor Gladys. I couldn't even enjoy the dress. And it was a beautiful dress. I couldn't even enjoy it because Gladys was standing up at the altar crying. I was just waiting for somebody to yell out. The sister that came, Sister Monica, Larry, Mr. Russell. He went to Gladys before the wedding and was like, I feel like I failed you because you did. Because he told her, like, you can marry for a love match. Like, I won't object. Like, I give you my word. And then didn't stand on it. And he was like, well, if you said something in the beginning, but now it's too far to turn back. Really, it wasn't. Okay, Gladys would be a social pariah. Okay, her mother would lose her clout. But you wouldn't have lost your daughter. Priorities just fucked up. And he gonna get in the car with Gladys right before the wedding. He said, so now what is it? What's next? Nigga, what's next? You the daddy. You supposed to know. Gladys sat up at that altar. I will or I do her life away. And next thing we know, she's on a boat sailing to England. Dude telling her he trying to get some ass. If he was a halfway decent man, you saw what Gladys looked like coming down that aisle. You saw her tear-stained face when that veil went back. If he was a halfway decent man, he would have told Gladys, you know what, get some rest. We'll talk about the consummation and all that. We can have a conversation about it tomorrow. Like, she's a terrified teenager. And she was like, I know you're tired. She was trying to talk him out of it. He says, I am tired, but I'm not too tired for this. She said, did your mother tell you? And she was like, we talked about it. And she said it's going to hurt. And he was like, just the first time. He's like, some people even grow to like it. Oh my God. You sold your daughter out. Like, it's not like you just bought a title. Like, you sold your daughter out to be continuously raped by somebody and bear their children, to not be able to love someone else, to be literally stuck in this situation, because the voice keeps coming up on the show, to be stuck in this situation for the rest of her life, from 17 until, I don't know, 77, 87. You just sold Gladys like that. It's wrong. It's wrong. Mr. and Mrs. Russell have been my favorite characters on this show up until Sunday night is where I got off the train with Mr. Russell. I think I got off the train with Mrs. Russell last episode. Like, I knew she wanted this situation to happen and she was trying to talk Gladys into it. I would have been okay with it if she got a buy-in from Gladys from it, and not like one under duress, but like Gladys being like, okay, yeah, I do want to be a duchess and I do want to have this big influence, but that's not who Gladys is. Gladys doesn't have her mother's ambition in that way. Also, the very least that the Russells could have done is prepare Gladys for the life that she was going into. Gladys is very sheltered. Her mother didn't let her come out. She kept Gladys with a governess. She didn't get a chance to like get out and be social and really even like date and get to know people. She kept her very under thumb. But it just seems like nobody ever had a conversation with Gladys about like, okay, you're going to marry this man and you're going to move overseas. And this is the way that you need to conduct yourself. These are the types of people that you might meet. You have to be observant and shrewd, and you have to learn how to stand up for yourself and put your foot down and any of those things. Like, let me show you how to, essentially Mother Russell being like, let me show you how to be me. Think, what would I do? How would I handle? Because you can't call me. You can write me letters, but that's going to take weeks to get here and weeks to get back. There's a 6-week delay. You're going to have to figure out something for yourself. And they didn't do that for her. They failed that girl all the way around. Poor Gladys. I don't usually get this affected by TV characters, but I guess as somebody who knew at the altar that wasn't the right thing to do. I told my mom that I knew at the altar and I wish I had said something. And this is after I was divorced. And my mom said, why didn't you say anything? And I was like, well, what would you have done? And she said, I would have got you the fuck out of there, Demetria. I was like, we're just going to go out the front door. We're going to go out past the guests. And she was like, if that's the only exit. I've also said that to people in my inner circle. And I was like, what would you have done if I text you from the bridal suite and was like, hey, I can't do this. Like, help, like something. And my bestie, who's a dude, he was like, I would have went up to the front and be like, so ain't gonna be no wedding today, but the bar is open. Please enjoy yourself. They'll bring out the food from the back. He was like, it was a real simple solve, D. It was a real simple solve. Poor Gladys, man. I've watched that episode 3 times. I boo-hoo every time Gladys comes down the aisle. And I just sit there shaking my head like poor Gladys when she's on that boat. Whew. The other big storyline on Gilded Age, well, there's a couple of them. There's Jack and the clock. They sold the patent, which I was like, why y'all sell the patent? Y'all should have just leased it to them. But Jack and Larry Russell have sold this clock for the modern day equivalent of $20 million. I don't think Jack is ever going to see that money. It's just everything has happened too smoothly, too easily. They went out and pitched the clock to a bunch of different people. There was some hesitation from some of them, but then these people came back pretty quickly and then offered them 20 mil. My theory is Mr. Russell is strapped for money because of Gladys and because of the bankers, and then whatever he's trying to buy out west is not going smoothly. He's going to find out that his son sold this clock and got this 20 million. He's going to hit up Larry for the money, and Larry is going to give him Jack's portion of the money, and Jack's not going to get the money. I don't know if it's a signed agreement between them, a gentleman's agreement, but Jack being a servant and then Larry Russell being from a higher class, Jack's accusation, I don't think it's going to hold up. I think Jack is going to get screwed. I just don't see him getting the money. I think Jack's a good character, and I would like to see the storyline of someone literally going from rags to riches. So my hope is that that's what they do with Jack. That's what I was hoping for, but I really don't think that man gonna see his money, and it really upsets me because I think he's a really great character. Oh, the other thing, I don't understand why Jack gave I guess Larry Russell went and secured the contract, but Larry and Jack got offered 600,000 and they're splitting it 50-50. And I was like, was you with that man in the basement? I don't know, doing whatever you needed to do to the clock, making it tick or whatever it does. I was like, a 20% manager's fee would have been fine. But 50-50 just because you went out and found the plug? Bruh, Jack already got swindled. The other storyline, and perhaps my favorite, is Peggy. These bougie Black folks out in Newport. Peggy got sick, and a good Dr. Kirkland came to check on her. And then he be out in Newport, she be out in Newport. He tracked her down out in Newport, asked her to come meet his family. His mama, Claire Huxtable, is a piece of work. She been bougie for 5 generations. She got children that went to Yale and Harvard and Howard. And she's a colorist as well. Oh, she's terrible. She's awful. Felicia Rashad is playing this role so well that it's making me upset with her as a person. And then also Claire Huxtable. She is playing the hell out of this role. She's so awful. Oh my God, she's awful. She doesn't like Peggy's father because Peggy's father was born into slavery. And she keeps making these snide-ass remarks to the point that Audra McDonald, Peggy's mom, had to check her and be like, my husband is an honorable man. She had to get Mother Kirkland together real quick. And then Mother Kirkland was telling Peggy, because Peggy's involved in politics, Peggy was talking about, Black women getting the right to vote. She was like, in my day, when I was coming up, I just wanted to be like a mother and a wife. And Peggy was like, yes, I too would like to be a mother and a wife who can vote. She does not like her son with Peggy whatsoever. Partially because Peggy's father was born into slavery, and then also because they're dark-skinned people. I was like, ma'am, you ain't really even that light. Now, your husband and your son, okay, you barely passing a paper bag test. You really don't have that much right to be this Sadiddy. Now, on your lineage, okay. It's also not like the man asked to be born into slavery. Damn. I'm sure he would have chosen otherwise. Could he have? Oh, she pissed me off so bad. Then she gonna say to Peggy, she was like, yeah, my son said that, you're giving a talk. And she said, I'm going to come see it. And she said, I always take an interest in my son when he takes an interest in a body. Ma'am. She doing the goddamn most. You hear it in my voice. She done pissed me off. Oh, my God. The Black people of Newport should have their own TV show. They need their own thing. And I say this because what's going on with the Russells and even Larry and Jack and this clock and then the people downstairs, they got their own issue. Then the people across the street, the sisters. I love that they're giving these characters multi-dimension and layers and all of those things. But I was like, I need more Black people in Newport. I need to know more about what's going on over there. The last couple episodes have been absolutely excellent. Oh my God, I love this show. They upset in my spirit, but I love this show. I was going to make a transition that was, speaking of upsetting my spirit, Essence is not upsetting my spirit. I'm actually glad that Rich went on The Breakfast Club. He's the owner of Essence. Essence was hit really, really hard on social media during the festival, the days after the festival. Even now, it's been like a week and change, and people are still talking about it. It was renewed because of Rich's appearance yesterday. I want to talk about some of the things that he brought up in his interview. Early on in the interview, Rich pointed out unnecessarily, I thought, that he comes on The Breakfast Club. He said, I show up here every 2 years to address, some different issue. He said last time it was the sale of Shea Moisture. People were mad that a Black-owned business was being sold to white folks. They were concerned about the quality of the product and why Black people don't keep their businesses. And he said that time I came on and he said, we're selling this for a whole bunch of money. But he was like, I also support, I think he said 100 Black businesses. He was like, we're selling this company and we're getting all this money and it's being invested in other Black businesses, but we need the money in our community. There's logic to what I'm doing. People don't understand. I just thought by pointing out that I have to keep coming onto this show to address various issues, it kind of speaks to perhaps a internal issue of some sort that you keep finding yourself in scandals that become so out of control that you have to keep going to a platform to address them. Either get in front of issues before they happen, or and sometimes it's unavoidable, but stop fumbling so that you keep having major issues every 2 years. And then the time before the Shea Moisture sale, he says it later in the interview, the time before that was there was a commercial. This is how he explained it. He says there was a commercial that was running on TV of people's faces morphing into different faces as part of the commercial. He said they cut up the commercial for social media, and then the way that they ran it, I think it was a black woman's face morphed into a white woman, and people went ape shit. And he was like, it was a mistake. It wasn't intentional. Like, that wasn't the messaging that we intended to send, but it is the messaging that went out, and people were livid. And then he had to go on the Breakfast Club and address it. Okay. Or he chose. He didn't have to do shit. He chose to go on the Breakfast Club and address it. I'll give him this. He did take accountability for all of the issues. At one point in the interview, Charlamagne asked him about the production issues. Stephanie Mills wrote an open letter that was scathing, complaining about production issues, technical issues, things of that nature. And Rich explained that they had hired a company who dealt with production. And he said, they might not have had a lot of experience. They didn't get everything right. But he was like, essentially, that falls on us because we're the ones that hire them. We're the ones that need to train them to do what we want them to do the way that we want them to do it. And so I respected that. He did say that a lot of criticism against Essence was warranted, some of it not. He did mention Lauryn Hill went off stage at 3:30 in the morning on the first night. That was another one of the production issues. Lauryn Hill was getting hit really hard about the timing because, she's known for being late. So people just assumed it was Lauryn Hill's fault. And then Essence stepped up and said, no, that was us. He says, our job is to protect Black women. I think Mia X, who also wrote an open letter to Essence, would say otherwise. She literally said in her letter that she felt unprotected. That didn't come up on the Breakfast Club. In Mia X's letter, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but essentially she said Master P was hired to do a set for Essence, and he put her name in it. And she didn't know anything about it until Essence started marketing that she was performing. And so she was like, how are you marketing that I'm performing at a festival? And like, no one's called me. There's no contract. There's no money exchange. And she said she repeatedly had issues with Essence advertising her, even after she said, I'm not a part of this. I've signed nothing. I've been paid nothing, not through you, not through Master P. Like, take my name out this ish. And she said Essence never did. She said she felt very unprotected. That was literally the word that she used. Rich pointed out that they didn't get everything wrong. He pointed out that he's like, we had 40 acts over 3 days. He says one thing that people didn't complain about was the lineup. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I wasn't there. I didn't hear a lot about that. I'll let that one stand. He pointed out the convention center did really well. He said people aren't complaining about that, which in fairness, I've not seen complaints about the convention center. I did hear that it was a little empty. Charlamagne asked him about that, and he said last year it was really crowded. He was like, so we got like an extra 100,000 square feet so people could spread out and wouldn't be on top of each other. They had the same number of people there this year. He said at least 50,000 every day in the convention center. I haven't worked at Essence in a very long time. 50,000 sounds low to me, but we'll leave it at that. They said they're still talking to everybody, trying to figure out exactly what went wrong, which is, again, fair. The festival ended last Sunday. It hasn't been a very long time to actually go through those things. As someone who does events, it does take a minute to go through and figure out like exactly what went wrong and what the fix is. This was an interesting detail. DJ Envy went down to Essence and was on a panel. And he talks about the panel being called Suede, which perked up my ears because Suede is and was the best magazine that ever existed. And it only ran for 4 issues. I still have them. They are cherished. I actually need to put them in something airtight so they don't deteriorate. I love that magazine. The book that I'm working on is based on the layout of Suede, like that collage sort of look. It was packed with fashion and information and the perfect wording. Like it was the perfect magazine. Rich is now co-opting the name Suede He mentions it. He says, oh, it was an Essence property that was shuttered. It was a little more than that, sir. And they're reappropriating the name Suede because he thinks it's a great name to be over the men's space. So like men are now going to have a space in Essence, which they've always had. Like there used to be a men's issue when I was there, long before I was there. Like that's fine. I don't mind men having a space, but I was like, absolutely do not call it Suede. Suede is a particular thing to a particular segment of women. It is not a men's thing. It is the greatest magazine that ever existed for women, ever. As a magazine junkie girl with a master's degree in magazine journalism, like the greatest magazine ever. Only 4 issues. Let's see. Still going through this list. They were talking about the decision with Target and acknowledging that there is a boycott, an ongoing boycott. You mentioned Tamika Mallory and Jamal Bryant and just Black people in general. Like Tamika had an idea, Jamal Bryant had an idea, but I think a lot of Black women, me being one of them, after Target distanced itself from DEI, I was like, I'm done. I haven't been in a Target since January, and then it became a more organized thing. That's fine. Rich acknowledged that dealing with Target he did say it was a difficult decision. He said, we've had a contract with Target for 4 years, and they've been good partners. He said the CEO came to Festival and said that Target had committed a $2 billion investment to the Black community, and they had never stopped their commitment. They continued with their HBCU commitment and scholarships, and the dollar commitment, the $2 billion, was intact. Rich says that their decision to work with Target, which again, under contract with them, there was only so much that could be done. But he said what factored into his decision was that if Target hadn't been present, then the vendors in the convention center would have lost incomes. I think the connection that he's making is on the interview I did with the chief events officer, he said that they would have had to charge for people to come to the convention center if Target dollars had not been a part of the festival. So I think what Rich is saying is there would have been less people coming into the convention center. The vendors would not have made their sales. So Target not participating would have been a disaster for the business vendors. Rich says that the vendors come to Essence. He says they sell more at festival than sometimes they do throughout the rest of the year. I know several people who have vended at Essence, and not all of them, obviously, but several of them, and all of them have basically told me they lost money and don't break even. They use it more so as a marketing arm than as something to actually make money. I'm just giving you the information I have and trying to put it in context. Envy, again, he went to Essence this year. He said he didn't know the lineup for the concerts, which he enjoyed. He said he didn't know the lineup until he was at the show and people were performing. He said he didn't know LL was going to be there until he saw him on the plane. He said he wanted to know the concerts in advance. This is something I talked a lot about last year. I didn't say anything about Essence Festival this year. I was encouraged to let Essence alone after some of my commentary last year, because last year we were doing like a countdown to festival, because I was like, okay, like it's May, who's performing? Okay, so like it's the second week of May, like who's performing at this concert in July? We did a whole countdown. So Envy had the same observation I did, which is like tell people in advance what's going on. Rich also says that there were sponsors that cut sponsorship and pulled out completely from festival. And he said Ford did not come back, and also Delta did not come back this year. And so Envy asked the obvious, and he was like, why? Did something happen? And Rich says it's because of DEI. He also says that they knew that they were going to take a loss on the festival this year, but they decided to do it anyway. Envy asked Rich, he said, should festival happen next year since it took a loss and they don't have sponsors? I literally gasped at the idea of this. Just the idea of like not doing an Essence festival. Katrina happened, New Orleans is devastated, and Essence moved to Houston because the idea of not doing an Essence festival was so unfathomable. Like, what? I think if anything, if the money is not there, or if it's, just getting too big to manage it the way it's previously been done, then maybe scaling back could be an option. The idea of canceling it is just like, absolutely fucking no. Are you crazy? Rich says that Essence will find what they need and that they won't just give up because things are hard. And Charlemagne points out, and he says, does it make it harder for Essence to get sponsors since there's so many people across social media ragging on the company? Rich acknowledges, yes, that is the case. Rich specifically says they will adjust to criticisms that are reasonable. Lauren asked Rich about Caroline Wanga. I mentioned her on last week's episode without naming her. If you listen to that episode, I spoke about people are attacking a woman who ain't been in the office for a year. I relayed a conversation that I had when I asked, like, does she work there? And the answer was, it's complicated. And we had to go back and forth, and all I could get was, she ain't been in office since last July. Caroline Wanga was and is the CEO of Essence Ventures. She put up an Instagram post, like last Friday, I think, acknowledging she had nothing to do with this year's festival because she's been on leave, which Rich also says on The Breakfast Club. So people who were talking about like the African woman who's running Essence, the African CEO who's bombing Essence, people were posting pictures of her and I think her wife and kids, all for naught because she had nothing to do with it because, again, on leave. Also, again, she's the CEO, yes, and Rich is the owner, yes, but the person who's actually running the festival, like the chief events officer, again, the guy interviewed last week, he's a black dude from North Carolina with parents from Alabama who went to an HBCU and pledged Kappa. He ain't African. I mean, his bloodline, for sure. But like, born in America, American black. Lauren asked Rich about Caroline and then about all the conversations about Black Americans versus Africans. He said he struggled with that criticism, quote, intellectually. And then he broke down, he said there were 40 acts performers on the Essence stage. And he said 2 of them were non-Black American to his knowledge. So Davido, who's Nigerian, and Buju, who's Caribbean. Jamaican. So 38 American acts, 2 non-American acts. That's 95% of the acts would be Black Americans. The Jambalaya and Jollof event, which last episode, Barclay told us that was an AT&T event. That's one event that people keep talking about out of all of the events. Like 3 days in the convention center, Rich is talking about there's beauty programming and there's film and entertainment programming and there's a whole men's programming and then there's concerts in the convention center. There's all this stuff going on. Like minimum, let's say there were 50 activations. It's more like 200. But let's say there were 50 activations. One of them is the Jollof versus Jambalaya. The vast majority of Essence Festival was content curated for a Black American audience, happily, joyfully, and willfully done so. The core complaints people have about Essence not being for Black Americans or other cultures taking over is some rice at an event, Buju, which Black folks ain't never complained about reggae music. We look forward to the reggae portion at the club. And we can't stay out of the Caribbean. I'm literally in the Caribbean right now. And then Davido, who had at minimum a top 10 song in the U.S. It's not like Essence went and threw somebody on the stage that ain't nobody ever heard of. Fall was a huge song. This is what people are complaining about. It has the least credibility of all the things that people have been complaining about online, and also the most impact. And one of the things that I was maybe concerned about for the Essence brand, and again, I ain't worked there. I left 14 years ago. I've written for them. I wrote a cover story 3 years ago. I got a GLAAD nomination for that. So like I've done work for them, but I have not actually worked there. But just as a Black woman, for obvious reasons, I'm invested in the brand's success. I think the accusation of Essence no longer being for Black Americans, while there may not be much truth in the allegations, it's one thing that's sticking and has the potential to be seriously damaging to the brand. I understand why Rich kind of brushed it off because there's no logic in it. There's just enough fear and concern and also enough people saying that Essence is being hijacked that it's sticking and reasonable people are believing it. So like him kind of like brushing it off is like, it's not intellectual. Like I get it, but also that concern, that non-intellectual concern, that thing, that feeling that people have. What does Maya Angelou say? People don't always remember what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel. The feeling is real, and the feeling is what people are basing how they move on. What I was saying at the top of the episode is I don't necessarily think that this issue is, I'm saying issue when I should be saying fear, because that's really what it is. It's a fear that didn't come out of nowhere. Think about what's going on with Black folks right now. We have an openly hostile government where the president and his entire cabinet aren't even pretending that they like Black people. DEI, which, like affirmative action, mostly benefited white women, but Black people did get some come ups. For the most part, when people say DEI, I was like, it's supposed to be a dog whistle, but we can all clearly hear it. Dog whistle for Black. And it's synonymous with incompetence. So they're doing that whole Black people are dumb as fuck thing. Remember earlier we were talking about Alligator Alcatraz? I was like, America is not creative, but it's very, very consistent. They're playing on these historical Black stereotypes again. So Black people are dealing with that. We're seeing very competent, very qualified Black people who more than earned their position, who are overqualified even for their positions, getting fired from their jobs for no reason other than being Black. We're seeing the literal erasure of Black first, Black professionals, Black people who sacrificed their lives even being erased from websites, from the names of buildings, from even being acknowledged in any way if it has to do with the federal government. There's rumor of one of our proudest museums being whitewashed. We've also had an ongoing issue with representation in TV and film. Think about all the times that there have been complaints, particularly about British actors, quote and unquote, taking the roles of Black Americans. Think about, I don't mean to throw this woman under the bus because I said I moved on, but it's hard to have this conversation and not mention it. Cynthia Erivo being on Twitter mocking a ghetto Black American accent and then also being selected to play Harriet Tubman. And it's like, if you must find somebody who's not a Black American to play this very Black American icon, could you not find somebody who didn't mock our culture? I acknowledge that there are so many British actors over here in America acting, one, because the pay is better, and two, because they're not getting the same opportunities in their home country. The real issue is not with Black Brits. The core fundamental issue is white supremacy and sidelining Black people. So we're fighting over scraps. I get it. And at the same time, I'm also like, I get why some Black Americans are like, what the fuck? Why are we getting pushed out of our own spaces? Not so much with Essence, but just like in general. Very recently, Kai Cenat. I don't know nothing about that little boy, except he's like a #1 streamer, if not the #1 streamer. He makes something like 8.5 million in subscriptions every month, which I was like, do I need to get on a fucking stream? I've contemplated it. Kai Cenat saying Black Americans have no culture. And then there's like the culture wars that play out on a regular basis on social media. But you watch that stuff play out online and it starts to feel like much more real than it actually is. And then you see it in your politics, and then you see it in your entertainment, and then you see it from other people with positions of influence. And that shit starts to add up. People aren't having this belief, this fear, again, that Essence is being co-opted out of nowhere. It's not happening in a bubble. There's instances in other places where the culture has been disrespected. There's instances in other places where Black people are under attack. I get it. I just wish Essence would take it more seriously. Even though there's no real truth in it, the belief of it, the fear of it, will sink your shit faster than anything else. Most people listen to this podcast are people of a certain age. Hilfiger never said that he doesn't want Black people to wear his clothes. It never happened. And yet, every Black person I know thinks Hilfiger said this shit and stopped wearing Hilfiger because of it. Rich did ask that people have just a little more grace with Essence. He reiterated getting sponsors is more challenging in this current environment. And he said, for obvious reasons, like, I mean, he and Charlamagne were having a conversation about this, and Rich was agreeing that it's difficult to get sponsors to sign on to work with an event if there's bad blood on social media. No sponsor wants their name tied up in mess complaints and scandal. So Rich had asked if there was a little more grace with Essence. Lauren asked him, she was like, well, what's the, happy medium? Because you don't want people to complain. But people need to be able to, say like, hey, I paid my money and I wasn't happy and this is what I was expecting and I expected better. So Rich said he didn't really have an answer for that. He just wanted people to understand that there's a consequence that comes with expressing their displeasure all over social media. He also said that he thinks a lot of it is bots, which I was like, bruh, you are severely... Didn't Drake think that? Drake thought like Kendrick's numbers for A minor. They not like us. He said that he thought those numbers were fake. And then people were like, no, we just listened to the song on repeat for like days at a time. Like those are real numbers. I think most of the people who were complaining about Essence, I don't know if all of them went to festival, but I do not think that they're bots. Rich concluded the interview. He said that Essence will do work and do better, especially in production and getting the word out. I think they're going to have to do something about the PR, getting the message through that this is a Black American event. And I don't know how they do that. I just know that that's a persistent point of view right now that even the thinking people are buying into. It's a feeling. It's hard to fight a feeling. You got to combat it with another feeling. I ain't say it was easy. I'm just saying they're going to have to do it so it don't fuck up festival. All right. I saw the Emmy nods came out while I was editing. We'll do those next week. Congratulations, though, to Sterling K. Brown on Paradise, since we talked about him earlier in the episode. He's nominated for Best Actor. And then I saw Shaq defending Angel Reese. We can talk about that next episode, too. All right. Talk soon. Likely Wednesday, because I don't know when I'm going to be home again. Okay, bye.